In a high-stakes moment at the airport, a black professional faces humiliation when a flight attendant denies her boarding, until her distinguished airline captain father steps in and exposes the hidden prejudice that threatens to ground her dignity. The bustling airport terminal hummed with the energy of countless travelers. Luggage rolled, conversations blended, and amid this controlled chaos stood Sarah Thompson, a 35-year-old professional whose presence radiated quiet confidence. Her meticulously tailored blazer and perfectly positioned carry-on bag spoke of precision and purpose. As she approached the boarding gate, an unexpected barrier emerged in the form of Andrea Reynolds, a flight attendant in her mid-40s with sharp features and an even sharper demeanor. The interaction began with a seemingly routine moment that would quickly unravel into something far more complex. "I'm sorry," Andrea said, her tone clipped and laden with unspoken judgment, "but I don't think you're seated in first class." Sarah's response was measured and calm. "I have my boarding pass right here. Seat 2A. The escalation was not a sudden eruption, but a carefully choreographed dance of power, prejudice, and professional posturing. The airport terminal, typically a neutral space of transient movement, became a charged arena where unspoken social dynamics would be brutally exposed. Sarah Thompson stood at the epicenter of this moment, her very presence a quiet challenge to the systemic assumptions that Andrea Reynolds represented. Andrea's scrutiny of the boarding pass was more than a procedural check. Each movement of her fingers tracing the document was laden with meaning, a performative act of administrative power that spoke volumes about the subtle mechanisms of institutional discrimination. Her thoroughness was calculated, designed to create a sense of doubt, to make Sarah feel the weight of unnecessary verification. The surrounding environment seemed to contract, with other passengers becoming unwitting audience members to this unfolding drama. Their reactions formed a complex tableau of social dynamics, some averting their eyes out of discomfort, others watching with a mixture of curiosity and growing unease. Each glance, each subtle shift in body language became a microaggression in its own right, creating a collective atmosphere of implicit judgment. What Andrea failed to understand was the depth of experience Sarah carried with her. As the daughter of a distinguished airline captain, Sarah had navigated these moments her entire life. Her composure was not passive acceptance, but a carefully cultivated form of resistance. Every measured breath, every steady gaze was a deliberate strategy of maintaining dignity in the face of systemic challenge. The language of the interaction existed far beyond words. It was communicated through subtle body language, through the tone of voice, through the implicit assumptions that govern professional interactions. Andrea's stance suggested more than just a routine check. It was a manifestation of deeply ingrained biases that had been carefully learned and internalized over years of institutional conditioning. Sarah's boarding pass became more than a simple travel document. It transformed into a battleground of identity, a piece of paper that would challenge the unspoken boundaries of professional and racial expectations. The verification process was never truly about confirming a seat assignment, but about challenging Sarah's right to occupy a particular space. The escalation revealed the intricate machinery of unconscious bias. Andrea's actions were not the result of individual malice, but of a complex system of learned behaviors and institutional assumptions. She was simultaneously a perpetrator and a product of systemic inequalities that had been carefully constructed over generations. Passengers began to create their own narratives around the interaction. Some silently sided with Andrea, their own unconscious biases surfacing in subtle ways. Others felt a growing sense of discomfort, recognizing the familiar pattern of unnecessary scrutiny that many people of color experience in professional spaces. The terminal became a living, breathing organism of social tension. The economic and social implications of such interactions run deep. Each moment of unnecessary verification, each microaggression, carries a psychological toll that extends far beyond the immediate encounter. Sarah was not just defending her right to board a flight, but challenging an entire system of professional gatekeeping that had historically excluded and marginalized black professionals. Time seemed to stretch and contract during the escalation. What might have been mere seconds felt like an eternity, a suspended moment where multiple narratives of power, identity, and professional belonging collided. Sarah's stillness was itself a form of resistance, a refusal to be diminished by the performative power play unfolding around her. The boarding pass became a symbol of broader societal negotiations. It was no longer just a document of travel, but a testament to the ongoing struggle for genuine equality in professional spaces. Andre's verification process was a microcosm of larger systemic challenges: the constant need for black professionals to prove their belonging, to validate their presence in spaces traditionally reserved for others. Other airline staff began to take notice, creating a network of observation and potential intervention. The social dynamics of the workplace were laid bare: the complex hierarchies, the unspoken rules, the delicate balance of professional courtesy and underlying bias. Each glance, each subtle movement became a statement about institutional culture. Sarah's background as the daughter of a distinguished airline captain added another layer of complexity to the interaction. Her very presence was a living challenge to the narrow assumptions that Andrea represented. She carried with her a legacy of professional excellence, a generational narrative of breaking barriers and challenging systemic limitations. The verification process became a performance of power, a ritualistic display of administrative authority that spoke more about the institution's internal dynamics than about any genuine security concern. Andre's actions were not about ensuring compliance, but about maintaining a perceived social order that had long privileged certain bodies over others. As the tension continued to build, the airport terminal transformed. No longer just a space of transit, it became a stage where complex social dramas would be enacted. The boarding gate was not just a point of entry to a flight, but a critical intersection of power, identity, and professional belonging. The escalation was ultimately about more than Sarah's right to board a flight. It was a profound moment of social negotiation, a live demonstration of the ongoing challenges faced by black professionals in navigating institutional spaces. Each moment was loaded with historical significance, a continuation of long-standing struggles for genuine recognition and respect. Sarah's composure became her most powerful weapon. Unlike the performative aggression of institutional power, her resistance was quiet, dignified, a testament to a strength that could not be diminished by unnecessary scrutiny. She was writing a new narrative, one of resilience, intelligence, and unwavering self-respect. The moment of intervention represents more than just a simple interruption. It is a profound crucible of human experience, where decades of personal history, systemic challenges, and individual dignity converge in a single, electrifying instant. Captain Michael Thompson's approach to the boarding gate is not merely a physical movement, but a carefully choreographed dance of professional authority and paternal protection. Captain Thompson's career had been a testament to resilience. As a black man who had risen through the ranks of commercial aviation during a time when such achievements were rare, he understood intimately the subtle and overt forms of discrimination that could manifest in seemingly mundane interactions. His journey had been paved with countless moments of proving himself, not just as a capable pilot, but as a human being worthy of respect. The airport's ambient noise seemed to recede as he approached, his uniform speaking a language of its own. Each brass button, each perfectly pressed crease told the story of discipline, dedication, and hard-earned respect. His stride was deliberate, not aggressive, but undeniably commanding. Years of navigating aircraft through turbulent skies had given him a presence that could calm storms, both meteorological and interpersonal. Andrea Reynolds, who moments ago had been the picture of administrative confidence, began to sense a seismic shift in the atmosphere. The swagger that had characterized her interaction with Sarah now dissolved into something closer to uncertainty. Professional gatekeepers like Andrea often operate within unspoken systems of implicit bias, comfortable in their perceived authority until that authority is directly challenged by someone who fundamentally understands the mechanisms of power. The captain's eyes, deep, intelligent, carrying the weight of countless experiences, locked with Andrea's. It was not a confrontational gaze, but a penetrating one. The kind of look that can simultaneously communicate multiple messages: disappointment, understanding, and an invitation to recognize one's own unconscious prejudices. In that single moment of eye contact, volumes were communicated without a single word being spoken. Is there a problem here? The question was deceptively simple, its delivery a masterclass in professional restraint. Captain Thompson's voice carried the measured tone of someone who had mediated countless complex situations, both in the cockpit and in life. It was neither aggressive nor apologetic, simply direct, allowing the weight of institutional authority to rest comfortably in each syllable. For Andrea, this was a moment of profound reckoning. The color draining from her face was not just a physical reaction, but a metaphorical stripping away of her previous certainties. To recognize the captain was to suddenly see the entire interaction through a dramatically different lens. The woman she had been challenging was not just a passenger, but the daughter of a highly respected airline professional. The dynamics at play extended far beyond this singular moment. This was about more than a boarding pass or a seat assignment. It was a microcosm of larger societal negotiations around race, power, and institutional respect. Sarah's dignified silence throughout the interaction spoke volumes, her composure a form of resistance more powerful than any verbal confrontation could have been. Captain Thompson's intervention was strategic yet deeply personal. He was not just defending his daughter, but making a statement about the kind of professional environment he believed should exist. Each word, each gesture was carefully calibrated, a lifetime of navigating complex racial dynamics, distilled into a single powerful moment of presence. The surrounding passengers became inadvertent witnesses to this profound interaction. Their hushed whispers, their averted yet curious gazes, created a living tableau that captured the complexity of contemporary social interactions. Some felt uncomfortable, some inspired, some quietly ashamed, but all were transformed by bearing witness to this moment of dignified confrontation. What made this intervention particularly powerful was its lack of performative anger. Captain Thompson did not raise his voice or display overt aggression. Instead, he relied on the quiet power of institutional knowledge, professional credentials, and a deeply rooted sense of personal dignity. His intervention was a surgical strike of accountability, precise and devastating in its simplicity. For Sarah, this moment was both familiar and new. As the daughter of a pioneering black airline captain, she had grown up understanding the nuanced ways discrimination could manifest. Yet this was her moment, her direct experience of her father's protective yet empowering presence. It was a living lesson in how to confront systemic bias with grace, intelligence, and unwavering self-respect. The intervention lasted mere seconds, but its implications would reverberate far beyond this immediate airport interaction. It was a reminder that dignity is not something granted by institutions or individuals, but something inherent. A fundamental human quality that cannot be denied, only momentarily obscured. The revelation was not merely a statement, but a seismic event that would reshape the entire landscape of the airport terminal. Captain Michael Thompson's words, "This is my daughter," carried within them decades of struggle, achievement, and quiet resistance. Each syllable was weighted with historical significance, a distillation of generations of black professional excellence that refused to be marginalized. In that suspended moment, time seemed to expand and contract. The surrounding space, typically a neutral transit zone of anonymous movement, became charged with an electric tension of human drama. Andrea Reynolds stood at the epicenter of this transformation, her previous certainty crumbling like a fragile architectural construct suddenly exposed to its own fundamental weakness. The revelation was multilayered. On the surface, it was a simple statement of familial connection. Beneath that, it was a powerful deconstruction of the systemic assumptions that had guided Andrea's interactions. Her unconscious bias had created an entire narrative about Sarah's belonging. A narrative that was instantaneously dismantled by the captain's introduction. Captain Thompson's choice of words was deliberate. My daughter was not just a biological statement, but a declaration of lineage, of pride, of institutional belonging. It spoke to a heritage of professional achievement that transcended the narrow-minded prejudices Andrea had unconsciously deployed. Each word was a surgical instrument, precisely cutting through the fabric of unexamined assumptions. The physical transformation in Andrea was profound. Her body language, previously rigid with administrative authority, now collapsed in on itself. The color that had painted her cheeks with confident judgment now drained away, leaving behind a pallor of sudden, uncomfortable awareness. Her eyes, which moments ago had been instruments of exclusion, now reflected a mixture of shame, embarrassment, and the painful process of self-realization. For the passengers witnessing this interaction, it became more than just a personal confrontation. It was a live demonstration of how systemic prejudices can be exposed and challenged. Some shifted uncomfortably, recognizing their own potential complicity in such moments. Others watched with a sense of hushed admiration, witnessing a masterclass in dignified confrontation. Sarah's positioning was crucial. She was not a passive recipient of her father's protection, but an active participant in this moment of revelation. Her posture remained unchanged, dignified, composed, her very stillness a form of powerful resistance. She understood that this moment was larger than her individual experience, a microcosm of broader societal negotiations around race, belonging, and professional respect. The captain's statement, "She not only has every right to be on this flight, but she represents the best of what our airline stands for," was a multi-layered declaration. It was not just about Sarah's individual right to board, but a broader commentary on institutional values. He was challenging the airline's implicit and explicit systems, suggesting that true professional excellence knows no racial boundaries. This revelation exposed the fragility of Andrea's presumed authority. Her actions had been predicated on unexamined assumptions, a complex network of implicit biases that she had likely never been forced to confront so directly. The moment was pedagogical, not just for Andrea, but for everyone witnessing the interaction. The surrounding environment seemed to absorb the weight of this interaction. The typical airport cacophony, the rolling luggage, the boarding announcements, the casual conversations, momentarily receded. In its place was a profound silence, pregnant with understanding, discomfort, and the potential for transformation. For Captain Thompson, this was not an unprecedented moment, but a continuation of a lifelong journey of navigating professional spaces designed to exclude. His intervention was strategic, surgical, the product of decades of experience in challenging systemic barriers with intelligence, grace, and an unwavering sense of self-worth. The revelation transcended the immediate personal interaction. It became a living lesson in accountability, in recognizing and challenging unconscious bias. Andrea was not just confronted with her individual actions, but with a broader system of racial assumptions that had guided her behavior. Sarah's presence throughout this revelation was particularly powerful. She did not display anger or seek vengeance. Instead, her composed demeanor was itself a form of resistance, a statement that dignity is not something granted, but inherently possessed. Her silence spoke volumes, more powerful than any verbal confrontation could have been. The moment of revelation lasted mere seconds, but its implications would reverberate far beyond this singular airport interaction. It was a microcosm of larger societal negotiations, about race, about professional belonging, about the ongoing process of challenging and dismantling systemic prejudices. As they prepared to board the flight, the interaction had transformed from a potential moment of discrimination to a powerful statement of resilience, dignity, and the ongoing struggle for genuine equality in professional spaces. The aftermath of the airport confrontation was not a simple conclusion, but a complex ecosystem of psychological, professional, and social repercussions that would extend far beyond the immediate moment of intervention. Sarah Thompson settling into her first-class seat represented more than just a physical positioning. It was a profound statement of resilience, a quiet victory that resonated with layers of historical and personal significance. Within the microcosm of the airline industry, incidents like these rarely remained isolated. Andrea Reynolds' interaction would become a pivotal moment in her professional trajectory. The airline's internal mechanisms, HR departments, diversity training programs, supervisory review processes, would inevitably engage with this encounter. What might have seemed like a momentary indiscretion would likely trigger a comprehensive review of staff training, unconscious bias protocols, and customer interaction standards. Captain Michael Thompson understood the broader implications intimately. His decades of navigating both literal and metaphorical turbulence in the aviation industry had taught him that individual moments of confrontation could become catalysts for systemic change. His intervention was not just about protecting his daughter, but about challenging the deeply ingrained structures that allowed such discriminatory interactions to occur with alarming regularity. For Sarah, the seat she occupied became a symbol of more than just physical travel. It represented a journey of generational resilience, a continuation of her father's legacy of breaking barriers and challenging systemic limitations. Each adjustment of her posture, each calm interaction with the flight crew, was a subtle act of resistance. She was not just a passenger, but a living testament to professional excellence that refused to be defined or limited by racial prejudices. The passengers who had witnessed the interaction would carry this moment with them, becoming inadvertent carriers of a powerful narrative. Some would share the story with colleagues, friends, and family, creating ripple effects of awareness that extended far beyond the immediate airport environment. Each retelling would potentially challenge another individual's unconscious biases, creating a subtle but powerful mechanism of social education. Within the broader context of contemporary social dynamics, this incident represented a microcosm of larger conversations about racial equity, professional respect, and institutional accountability. It was not an isolated event, but part of an ongoing dialogue about who belongs in spaces traditionally reserved for certain demographic groups. The power of the interaction lay in its ability to transform a potential moment of humiliation into a powerful statement of dignity. The airline's response would be crucial. Sophisticated organizations understand that such incidents are not just individual failures, but opportunities for institutional learning. Andrea Reynolds would likely undergo additional training, not as a punitive measure, but as a genuine opportunity for professional and personal growth. The goal would be understanding, not vilification, a nuanced approach to addressing unconscious bias. Captain Thompson's professional network, a web of pilots, airline executives, and industry professionals, would inevitably discuss the incident. These conversations, happening in crew lounges, professional conferences, and private communications, would contribute to a broader institutional reflection. Each discussion would potentially challenge existing assumptions and reinforce commitments to genuine inclusivity. For Sarah, the aftermath was a moment of both personal reflection and professional affirmation. Her response, calm, dignified, unbroken, was a learned skill cultivated through years of navigating complex racial dynamics. She understood that her individual experience was part of a larger narrative of Black professional excellence that refused to be marginalized. The technological age would add another layer to the aftermath. Social media, news platforms, and professional networks would potentially amplify the story, transforming a personal airport interaction into a broader conversation about institutional discrimination. Each share, each discussion would contribute to a growing awareness of the subtle and not so subtle ways prejudice manifests in professional spaces. Psychological research suggests that moments of direct confrontation with unconscious bias can be deeply transformative. For Andrea Reynolds, this would likely be a profound learning experience. The sudden exposure of her underlying assumptions, witnessed by multiple individuals, would create a powerful moment of self-reflection. The most meaningful growth often emerges from moments of uncomfortable recognition. The airport itself, a transient space designed for movement and anonymity, had become a stage for profound human drama. The terminal, typically a place of temporary connections and impersonal interactions, had transformed into a space of deep human significance. Every corner, every passing moment now carried the weight of this encounter. Institutional change is rarely dramatic or instantaneous. It occurs through accumulated moments of confrontation, reflection, and gradual transformation. This single interaction would become part of a larger narrative of professional evolution, contributing to ongoing discussions about equity, respect, and genuine inclusivity. As the flight continued its journey, carrying its passengers across geographical spaces, it was simultaneously traversing complex social terrains. Sarah Thompson's presence, calm, accomplished, unbroken, was itself a powerful statement. She was not just traveling from one physical location to another, but continuing a journey of generational resilience that had been mapped out by her father and countless others who had challenged systemic limitations. The true measure of this moment would not be found in its immediate resolution, but in its long-term implications. Each person touched by this interaction, Andrea, the passengers, the airline staff, would carry a subtle but profound shift in awareness. Transformation happens not in grand, sweeping gestures, but in these intimate, personal moments of genuine human connection and understanding.